Hi everyone, I'm John Stewart and I coach with the Brooklyn Triathlon Club. I'm really excited to share with you part 2 of the introduction to Brooklyn Triathlon Club Swimming Online. Our main objective in this video is to have you ready to safely complete several coached swim sets at home and be excited to continue to build fitness, technique, and learn more about the sport overall. This video will help you get set up at home to do swim-like movements using TheraBands or stretch cords, including considerations regarding body position and when pressure should be applied or felt. Now let's talk about setting up your bands for the most effective swimming movements. First on the list, band tension. And I think that anybody just starting out with this, you should have a light tension. I have a couple of examples. The first is a green TheraBand. And when I push from this position, I can really feel a strain as I get to the end of the movement. I don't want that. I want something that gives very consistently. So I have a yellow TheraBand that I typically use that when I press out, it's a pretty light tension and it moves easily and smoothly through the entire motion. So first consideration, tension, go light. Here are two common options you can make at home to approximate the commercial band paddle combinations that are available. First, take a basic TheraBand, tie a loop and a knot with a number of wraps to make sure it's very secure. Put your hand in it and you can pull against it. Perfectly viable. Second, and what I like to use, an option where I have a hand paddle and I've just looped the TheraBand through the paddle, tied the knot, put my hand through, under the TheraBand, through the finger loop, and then I'm all set for a nice pull with pressure right in the center of the paddle. Finally, on the band in the center, you may want to tie a loop around whatever attachment point you're using, put a knot just so that the band doesn't slip back and forth around that object. Let's consider attachment points. And I'm going to go through several that I have here. The first is a waist height setup. It is what you will typically see in videos on this subject. I'm putting mine around a post, putting my hands into the loops on my TheraBand, and to flatten my back the best I can, pulling through. My main concern with this position is just how your lower back is set for a long period of time, and what it requires is taking breaks on occasion to stretch your lower back out or do an alternate movement such as a Superman or a baby cobra pose, something like that, just to stretch out for a minute or so. All that said, you can imagine if you had a flat bench here, something like you might find in your local health club, that you could approximate a very nice swimming position lying face down on that bench with your eyes on the ground, pulling through the stroke in a very nice flat body position. So if you have a bench and a low attachment point, that works very well. I think you simply don't see that in videos because it doesn't allow for rotation, and a lot of people don't have them at home, but they do approximate the swimming motion very well, and you can do backstroke with it if you so desire. Second is an elevated attachment point. I'm using one off of my ceiling, but you might have a high handle or a bar at your home. And it's easier to get into a flat back position with this setup. A little better angle. And I can pull through, and I'm not required to lean over as much. And I can also switch up my legs front to back to get a little different stance and ease the pressure on my lower back, switching leg position as I move from repeat to repeat within sets. Third option is a vertical or overhead position. It's easy to get into a flat back position to do your pulls. And I can simulate proper rotation whether I'm kneeling or standing. I can rotate my shoulders freely and my hips move with them to some degree. Another plus is if you have a long mirror, you can put it in front of you and you can watch your stroke as it's happening and see what your technique looks like. The main issue with this position is that every time you take a stroke, you're reaching overhead. So it will take a few practices to get used to lifting your arms vertically that often. Now let's talk about when you should feel pressure in the swim stroke. Ideally, from the extended position to when your arm becomes vertical in the water, there should be no pressure. Your shoulder is simply rotating your forearm down into the water to the vertical position. You can see that this is happening because of the way the band's going limp at the top of my stroke. But why is this important? A vertical paddle provides much better drag than an angled one. If you pull with an angled forearm, you direct part of the force downward as you pull back, lifting the body up. If you can imagine this line as my entry point into the water with my arm, and I use an angled arm for my pull, I come into the water, starts well enough, but then I pull early with an angled forearm, and my body makes it this far ahead. My hand slips this far back from my entry point. Now, with a vertical forearm, it's much different. It catches the water much better. I can drop in and I can push right off of that vertical forearm, my hand exiting very close or beyond that entry point. And I travel much, much farther every stroke. Now watch my elbow as my forearm moves to vertical. You can see that my elbow is actually moving forward as my hand drops. With my elbow moving forward, my forearm cannot be pulling backward. It's simply dropping in, and that's why there can be no pressure on the forearm at that point. This is what the best swimmers do. The trick is to allow the rotator cuff muscles to rotate the forearm down without engaging the large muscles of the back. The rotator cuff muscles are small and can't produce a lot of force to move you forward. With this band work, we can practice letting them do just the forearm rotation, which is ideal. So set your bands up to allow force to start at the correct point so you can produce force in the forward direction that you want. Thanks.